Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to fly fishing, picking the correct fly line can be really tricky. It's important that we understand what the different densities are, what the different weights are, what the different tapers are, how to use a poly leader, how to set one up, what the different tippet materials are, how to care for a fly line. There's so many things that we need to consider. In this video, I'm going to try and cut to the point and give you an idea of just exactly what it is you need to know so you can get started in your fly fishing. An important thing to consider with your fly line is your backing. So the backing is almost like a kind of pre-line that sits on the spool and it helps the fly line fill the spool up. Too much backing and the line is going to sort of fill right up to the edge of the spool. Too little and it's going to sit quite deep in the spool. It's important that we get the right balance because this backing allows you to strip the line from the reel effectively, and also it gives you that little bit of additional kind of buffer if you have, for example, a fish that bites and runs on. Now when it comes to backing, there is kind of no hard and fast rule, but what I would suggest is generally on the packaging of the reel, which you'll see in a moment, it will tell you exactly how much backing to kind of estimate to put on, and the more experience you get, the more kind of confident you'll get in judging it by eye. At the end of the fly line, you will find either a welded loop, which you can see here. This little loop allows you to attach your tippet material or your poly leader if you're using one. Really useful, really handy feature to have. Some older lines may not have this, or if it's a line that's maybe been used and damaged, you can add what is known as a braided loop onto the end, which is essentially the same thing that you add to the line yourself. Now a fly line is constructed by either using a braided or a monofilament nylon core, which is then coated in either PVC or polyurethane, depending on the density of the line. Now, it's important, again, I've mentioned this in all my other videos on this series, but it's important that you match the correct line to the reel and also to the rod. Your reel should have it either printed on the box or on the body of the reel somewhere. And the box will tell you exactly how much backing line you should be using. The line weight will also be stamped somewhere on the rod. Now this is by no means perfect, but feel free to pause and screen grab here. I've made a little table of what I think, in my opinion, is the sort of pairing between rods, line weights, and where we go. Highlighted in green is probably where I would start as a beginner. Now on screen here we've got a little graphic that I've made just to sort of show you the different tapers of fly line. So you've got a single taper which is just a consistent length all the way through. We have a weight forward line which is front loaded. It is forgiving, which makes it easy to cast with, and it's what I would recommend to a beginner. Because you've got that weight at the front of the line, you can cast effectively through wind and you can achieve a good distance with it. The next one we have is a double taper, which is a sort of older style fly line, which is great for sort of delicate dry fly work, and also when one end starts to wear out you can flip it round and use both sides. Okay, next one we have is a shooting head, which is basically a kind of shorter length fly line, and you can really get a big distance with this. This is generally kind of designed for more like kind of larger length rods like Spey and Scandi, for double-handed use, because it allows you to kind of get real distance and kind of chuck bigger flies. At the end of that you'll see that it's a thinner main line. It kind of is quite thin, but the shooting head allows you to get out quite far. I hope that made some sense. Now in this next little graphic we're going to look at the different densities of fly line. So starting off we've got floating, which sits on the surface. That is what I would recommend to any beginner. Then we have your intermediate, that sort of hovers, you know, not on the surface but it's not at the bottom, it kind of just sits intermediate. Then we have a full sink line, which obviously sinks into the column. And then finishing off we have a sinking tip, which is a floating line with a sinking tip welded onto the end of it, and that allows you to have the best of it. Now let's think about poly leaders. Alright, so that welded loop at the end of the line I was telling you about, that's where you're going to attach it to. So if you think about a poly leader as an extension of the existing fly line you have. Now here I have just a weight forward floating line, and generally if I'm out and about, that's all I want to really carry unless I need to carry a different line. That's where I use my poly leaders. Alright, so I think I showed you these previously. These come in a range of different densities. I'll show you a little chart in a minute. And what you do is once you get it out the packet, unravel it. You'll see it has a sort of fluorocarbon or a nylon end, and it is almost like a little kind of thinner fly line. Now these come in lengths of 5 feet, 8 feet and 10 feet depending on what species you're targeting. So you get basically your loop that's at the end of the tippet, or sorry, the poly leader, then it goes through the loop on your fly line, and then you pull the end with the tippet attached to it through, and it's just a loop to loop kind of attachment. And if I can get this through here, there we go, and then you just pull it through, and that gives you your sinking tip or whatever poly leader you've attached. And I will show you the graphic that shows you the different densities and things like that. When it comes to adding your tippet to the end of your poly leader, you could either use a sort of loop to loop method, a blood knot or a surgeon's knot. It doesn't really matter which one, just whatever you're more confident with. And there's the back of the pack there, you can see the different sort of attaching methods. Next one, talking about your tippet, that is what connects your fly. So I'm not showing you the kind of way I would knot this up because it is really thin. It'd be really difficult to see on the camera, but this is a real one. This is quite good, and your fluorocarbon is sort of kind of more stealthy. It's difficult for the fish to see it in the water, which is good. It increases your presentation. Now the next thing we want to consider is the memory of your fly line. Now basically, long story short, memory is where the fly line begins to coil, having been wound for so long. So sometimes a kind of cheap fly line or one that's been stored for a while will, when it's unraveled, look like it's coiled up, and that's basically the memory from either being on the spool or being stored. You can straighten this out by basically just straightening and stretching your line, and that will give you, as you can see on screen here, just it will straighten it out a little bit basically. Just be careful though, because it does burn your fingers. When it comes to caring for your line and cleaning it, what I like to do is just use some kind of lukewarm water and a little cotton pad, and I'll just run that over the line, and that just kind of cleans off anything that's on the line that might maybe have been in the water, or just this kind of general dirt and grime, because they do get quite dirty. And once I'm done, I do the same thing but just with a dry pad and just kind of clean it up. Now, as I say, that works quite a lot of the time, but there are times where you need something that is a bit more solution focused. So having a look here online, you can get plenty of, from fly line manufacturers, like line cleaners, alright, and they can add different things. So they can slick the line back up, which enables it to cast a little better. If there's any imperfections or blemishes or even cracks on it, these contain a little bit of silicone, so as you clean through the line, it will kind of fill in those gaps. And again, the prices range depending on where you're by what manufacturer you choose, alright, but any of these ones I would say would work really well. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful, and you've got a little bit of a better idea of what different types of fly lines there are, what the tapers are, what weight a fly line you might need for what you want to use it for, and you have an understanding of what a poly leader's for and how to use one. If you've got any questions at all, please pop them in the comments, and feel free to like, subscribe, and all those different types of things. Okay, in my next video I'm going to be finishing this series on beginner fly fishing with different types of flies, and then after that we'll see where we go. But in the meantime, have a good one. Bye bye.